Welcome back to the Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater. And, every so often doing these, you hit upon a film that you just don't know what to say about. It's a rarity. Most of the time, I get some idea of what I want to say and how I want to say it and, go from there. But every now and then, a real stumper hits you that you look at and you're just like, I don't know what I just saw. I am in complete mental disarray over how to articulate what I have seen here today.
Ow, that hurt my brains. Ow.
And such is the case with Death of a Unicorn. With a film as bizarre as this one that is really, really, really trying to hook you with the bizarreness of it, you'd think there would be no end of talking points, but there really isn't. Everything that is wrong with this movie is fairly obvious from a conceptual level, to the point that you wonder how nobody caught it. You really wonder how this did not catch someone's eye at some point along the way. Now, it comes to us from A24, which, to their credit, I really respect them as a production company, because they are one that specializes in these more off-brand, kind of out there, high concept, artsy yet still marketable type of darker film. That's kind of their brand. So, like I said, if nothing else, you'd think there'd be a lot to really go over, but once you see it, and even while you're seeing it, it becomes very, very clear that this just didn't work. It really doesn't, and it really doesn't work on just about every level. So, let's get into this. Let us talk about Death of a Unicorn. So, it's very possible you don't know what this movie is about. That you've probably heard the title, because it is one of those titles that you hear and you're just like, I'm sorry, what? But you don't really hear a whole lot as to what the actual plot is. So let's go through this. So our main characters are a father-daughter team, as played by Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega. Sing along with me if you know the words, because sometimes it feels like I use this to describe so many flippin' movies that it just gets silly after a point. So, they have a very strained relationship, and they have a very strained relationship ever since Jenna Ortega's mother, Paul Rudd's wife, died, and they are not seeing eye to eye. Oh, what a new and fresh take on family dynamics. And, okay, right here, from the start, we have one of the biggest problems with this movie. And that it is painfully bland. And its characters are shockingly one-dimensional. From every aspect of it. Now, and I've stated this before, archetypes, stock types, even one-dimensional characters are not necessarily a bad thing. Case in point, look at Independence Day, one of my favorite movies of all time. And those characters are incredibly stock and one-dimensional. They are there to fill very specific roles in the story. They do that, and, they do what you need them to do. So that's not an end into itself. But in order for that to be the case, the characters have to either A, have an interesting story that they can interact in, B, have fascinating and new kinds of interactions amongst each other, and C, slowly or in some minor way circumvent the one-dimensional aspect of their character. That's a lot, really. And the characters in this film do none of that. They are exactly what they are from the moment you meet them all the way to the end. There are no real surprises. No one really grows or changes. Nobody has any kind of, flip of their stock type. I mean, from the moment you meet them, they are there. Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega are there to go to Paul Rudd's employers, who run, among other things, a pharmaceutical company, because they're evil, because in modern day movie short term, pharmaceutical company equals evil. And you are introduced to this evil family, led of course by the dying Bob Evil.
Hi, I'm Bob Evil.
Who is of course trying to convince the audience he is not evil, but everybody knows that he is evil. He has his evil wife, played by Téa Leoni, and their evil son, played by Adam Warlock. That's the character from Guardians of the Galaxy the actor played. I don't remember his actual name, and I didn't care enough to look it up. So I put as much effort into getting all these actors' names as the writers did giving them interesting characters to play. The only character that they try to give some kind of character arc is Paul Rudd, and it fails miserably for a number of reasons. So before we get into that, we will come back to that. Let's talk about what happened. So Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega are driving through the Canadian wilderness when they harry in the Hendersons a unicorn. An honest-to-God, purple blood, make Hagrid cry unicorn. And its blood heals Jenna Ortega's acne. It cures Paul Rudd of his need for glasses and his sinuses. And of course, when they take it to, the family of evil, they're at Evil House, where they can discuss the business of Evil Co. Of course, they find out that the unicorn can cure Bob Evil of his crippling cancer, and now they have a cure for everything, and now they're going to mass market it and exploit the beautiful natural resource, blah, 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 blah. Come on, you know where this is going. I heard from other sites and whatnot that the saving grace of this movie is that it was well acted, that it had a good cast, and they all did a good job. I think it had a decent cast, but nobody does well here. Paul Rudd, an actor who I do genuinely enjoy, is doing his best Chris Pratt impression. And in fact, I'm just going to call this character type the Pratt from now on, because that has become the new go-to stock type in every fucking movie like this, and every fucking movie just about out there now. The fucking Pratt. You know the one I'm talking about. That yeah, I'm too cool, but I'm hip, and I'm gonna make, snarky comments and downplay how cool I am and blah, 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 blah. Oh, look at me. I can't sit down properly. I'm such a fool. I don't know that if I'm sitting down on a potted plant that the plant's going to get in my face. Oh, ho, ho, let me make a funny joke and try to act cool. I'm such a fucking prat. I swear to God, they look nothing alike, but there were times in this I thought he was Chris Pratt. I really fucking did. I mentioned a few seconds ago that they try to give Paul Rudd the only real character arc here, in that at the start of the film, he and his daughter are going there. He's trying to get in good with, Evil Co. and the family of evil, so that he and his daughter can be set for life and they won't have to worry about money anymore. And that means that he can spend more time being a real father. And of course, that goal leads him to become more and more corrupted vis-a-vis the power of the unicorn and how much money they're going to make. And then he has to do a face turn and realize what's really important, and that it's wrong to exploit this gorgeous creature and, fucking
yada, yada, yada.
But here's the problem. That's a decent character arc on paper, but here's the problem. As written and as played, this guy has already illustrated that he is a pretty shallow person from the jump. Like, I know that by getting an actor like Paul Rudd, who is a naturally likable, charismatic type of guy, I think they were trying to offset the bad writing and make you think that, yeah, he's doing these questionable things, but, he's really doing it for the right reasons, and he's a nice guy, and, the road to hell paved with good intentions, so on and so forth. But that doesn't come across. The guy, it's clear that this is where his focus is. This is just the way he talks to his daughter, the things he does to his daughter, what he's making her do, because for some reason the evil family want to make sure that Paul Rudd is got a good character if he's going to be the part of the executor of their estate or some shit. And so they make him bring Jenna Ortega with him so that they can see their family. I don't know why they do this. It makes no sense other than as a contrived reason to have Jenna Ortega along. But there's really nowhere for this guy to go. If they started him out as a loving father. You remember a few seconds ago I made the connection or the inference that we had seen this family dynamic here before, the strained father-daughter or father-child relationship. That this is every lazy screenwriter's go-to, thinking it's going to be an easy character arc. So I beg this question: what would have happened if instead of having a strained relationship, they actually had a good relationship? That their relationship was stronger after the mother passed because they leaned on each other and they formed a bond. And yes, times were tough and money was tight, but they powered through. That gives your character, your Paul Rudd character, somewhere to go. That he becomes seduced by the idea of easy money and, what does it matter if I exploit this thing? It could make my life immediately better, which would make my life better. And then his journey through that kind of moral gray area and then back into clarity has more weight. But because he and his daughter are already at odds, him going further down that path doesn't really have any shock or any kind of payoff. We knew that's what he was gonna fucking do from the get-go. You knew it. And if you don't know it, I ask you to please go watch literally any movie ever. So yeah. And then you have Jenna Ortega, again, an actor I really like. I think she is one of the best of this new crop of actors coming up. I think she's put together a very impressive filmography already. Some really good performances. She has a way of playing much younger than she actually is. I mean, she's still a youngin', but she's not a teenager. But she still has a way of playing teenage roles that are believable and don't feel hackneyed. So I really like Jenna Ortega, and I also like that she kind of has found her way into that Christina Ricci kind of film choices, where they are a little gothic, a little off the wall, a little bit out there, Wednesday, Beetlejuice, this, the Scream movies. She kind of has that, that is her kind of archetype, and that's not bad, because she's very interesting in just about everything she's in. And I will give her credit that I think she's doing probably the best at this, but even she does not escape the poor writing and the bad archetypal character. So of course her character is this, she's supposed to be the pure-hearted maiden that the unicorns can connect with. So of course, to show that she's pure-hearted, she has to spout things about misogyny and the patriarchy and how all these buzzwords and bumper sticker slogans about how, pharmaceutical people are evil and you're just aiding in a broken system, none of which is untrue, but the way it is written is so first-year sociology major. I just watched an episode of King of the Hill, of the original run, where John Redcorn explains to Bobby the indigenous person view on Thanksgiving, and Bobby just suddenly starts spouting all of these slogans. And it makes sense in that case, because he's a kid. He's being introduced to complex concepts and historical truths that he had never been exposed to before, so he doesn't have the ability to bring this to his own words or process it in a mature way. So of course he's just spouting slogans. But that's not this character. This character is supposed to be, again, the pure-hearted maiden. So instead of showing us that she has a connection to nature, or she has a deeper understanding, or maybe her pure heart could have been depicted through feeling sorry for her dad, but understanding where he's coming from and how hard it's been for him being a single father. But it doesn't come across. It comes across as every poorly written Lisa Simpson, Haley Smith that comes down the pike, who's, again, not speaking in actual experience or showing any real concern. She's just spouting, shorthand bumper stickers at us. And as such, she does a decent job. She's trying, but there's nowhere for her character to go. I think her character is the least stereotypical, which I think is why hers comes off as the best performance. But it's stereotypical because there's not much in there. It's an empty cipher. So then, of course, the baby unicorn is not dead several times.
I'm not dead. I'm getting better.
No, you're not. You'll be stone dead in a moment.
I feel happy.
But also we get a little bit of Orca, the killer whale, thrown in here because the unicorn's parents come looking for it and start slaughtering everybody. And I wish I could get worked up. I really wish I could get worked up for this. But I didn't care. I did not care at all about anything going on in this movie. I didn't care about the novelty of unicorns being real, of the unicorns killing people. I did not give a shit. And I think that's because this movie is trying to walk a deceptively difficult line. The same line that films like Abigail walked, or that Ready or Not walked, maybe even Violent Night. You know, those films that are kind of trying to be half serious and half camp, you know, where the characters are vaguely aware of the ridiculousness of their situation and are, you know, kind of can give that little wink and nod to the audience. The problem is, this one ignores one of the cardinal rules of a movie like this. And I discussed this when going over the rules for films like The Naked Gun.
There are certain rules that one must abide by.
What about the rules?
And that rule is that you can make a film that is camp, and you can make a film where the characters acknowledge how bizarre everything is. But the characters still have to be aware of the danger they are in. It has to take itself, to a certain extent, seriously. As ridiculous as movies like Ready or Not, Abigail, Violent Night are, and as broad as those characters are, and as self-referential as those characters are, they take the situation they are in 100% seriously. They're not making jokes and looking to the audience going, huh? Huh? Laugh, it's funny, laugh. But this film is, especially with Adam Warlock and Paul Rudd, they are constantly quipping and throwing their sarcastic, goofy, adorkable, I'm an asshole rich kid, you know, who likes to get high on unicorn horn. They are constantly flaunting that I'm making a joke. This is a joke. My character is a joke. See how funny this is? And Tay Leone is doing it as well. Bob Evil he's not doing it as much. He's trying to play it a little straighter, but they send his character on such a cartoony Mr. Burns, you know, kind of bent that you can't for any moment take it seriously. And that's vital in a film like this. We, the audience, can find it silly, and the characters themselves can kind of comment on, you know, this is fucking weird. We're being trampled by a unicorn. But the constant downplaying of the seriousness of it for cheap laughs takes away any weight that anything has, and so therefore you can't enjoy it. And to be fair, it's a very tricky line to cross. It is very easy to fall over into one end or the other, and I do think that this film is an example of how easy it is, because I can see what the filmmaker is going for. I really can. And if the scale had been tipped a little bit more the opposite direction, we might be looking at another one of those fun, kind of dark commentaries on human nature that's also kind of a fun bloodbath type of films. But it goes too far the other way, and it looks like one of those sci-fi movies, so sci-fi original films that, you know, Sharknado kind of started, that were bad on purpose, and we get that, and we're making a joke that we get that. And you ever notice that none of those films, not even Sharknado's various sequels, ever lived up to the original? Because the original, while stupid, was not openly mocking itself. It's kind of like...
Now, I don't want to get off on a rant here,
But it's kind of like there's a Mystery Science Theater movie, Hobgoblins.
Hobgoblins, hobgoblins, what do you do with those hobgoblins as we sing the Hobgoblin song today?
And it is very much one of those types of movies, that movie that either by accident or by design that the filmmaker said, this is going to be such a cheap movie, we might as well hang a lampshade on everything and just make it try to make it bad on purpose. But the problem with trying to make something bad on purpose is that you don't have the heart in it. And it just comes out being bad. The jokes are groaners. Everything that you try to just say, oh, this looks stupid, and that's okay, just looks stupid. Compare that to things like, I'll use a modern equivalent, The Room or Birdemic, where somebody was actually trying to do something, and just through ineptitude, it comes out as what it is. I have a point here, I promise. What I'm getting at is this movie went so far in the other direction that instead of kind of a sly wink to the audience and sharing in the laughter with the audience like some of those other films I mentioned do, this one becomes Hobgoblins. It becomes a we think we're so clever, wink, 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 wink. You're winking so much that your eye is gonna fall out. I don't even know how that would work. That's a stupid analogy. Sorry, that's the best I can do at this point. Is there anything positive about this film? Only a couple things, really. This is such a weird thing to pick up on, but I liked it. The costume design for Jenna Ortega, she has this red hoodie, but the cut of it looks like a cape. So she kind of has a little Red Riding Hood thing going on, which lends to the concept of this being kind of a dark fairy tale. That was cool, and I really liked that. I know that's a weird thing to pick up on, but I think it was a really cool costuming choice, and I kind of wish they had carried that theme over into the rest of the look of the film. So I liked that. I liked that it uses pieces of history, artwork from history as kind of the basis of its legend. The unicorn tapestries that are out there, you can look them up. I've always found that when movies do that and they use real history as kind of a jumping off point, I think it helps ground things a little bit more. There is the kind of a through line that these peddlers of drugs are kind of becoming addicts. Adam Warlock becomes addicted to snorting unicorn horn. The Bob Evil is so obsessed with healing himself that he's eating the unicorn meat, and I think they're trying to imply that is what is making him kind of go more and more evil, that too much of this, a little bit of it can heal you, too much of it can corrupt you. So that's kind of an interesting, and it kind of helps highlight the themes a little. It's still very heavy-handed, so it doesn't work, but it is kind of an interesting choice. I like that the unicorn murder spree. I like that the unicorns aren't really shown to be like super intelligent or like raptors where they can solve problems. They're basically just acting as wild animals would, that are protecting their young. I think the cleverest thing they do is set a trap for them, but they don't kind of give you this idea that these are smarter than the humans or that they have intelligence higher, that they're just long forgotten, animals. So I kind of liked that. Didn't make any of the murders more interesting. I like that there is a hand of practical effects in this, that they do use some puppetry and animatronics in connection with the less than stellar CGI. So I always like it when there's a blend of the two things. I always find it adds a bit of grounding to a film when there is a practical effect that the actors can actually interact with and react to. So I give them credit for that. But all of these have a but.
And nothing someone says before the word but really counts. But.
I found the design of the unicorns they did not look good. But I think if you really wanted to push this home, that the unicorns should have looked more like what we anticipate unicorns looking like. Very beautiful, horses with just this horn, but they tried making their snouts more, rodent-like, and they have these fangs, and it didn't look good. It didn't look good. So yeah, like I say, there are some things I liked about this movie, but they all have a on the other hand behind them. And they're not enough to pull this movie out of the dredges. I was thoroughly bored by this movie. A movie with this interesting of a hook should have been more creative. And they didn't think they had to be. It felt like they thought, well, we've got a murderous unicorn, that's weird enough, and we don't really have to, do anything else. So, yeah, I did not like this one. This one is a rough one for me. So let's wrap this up. I don't think there's much more to say. So final grade for Death of a Unicorn. I'm planting this one firmly in the D category. And the only reason it fails to plummet down into the Fs like some other movies is that I can tell that there was effort. This failed because things they went too far in one direction. All right? And I can see that the filmmakers had a vision and they were trying to do something, but I think they just took the easy way out too many times. And yeah, so I want to give credit to the filmmakers and the actors who are all trying. They're all working with the characters they have. It's just the characters they have are shit. So you can only polish a turd so much. So yeah, that's my opinion on Death of a Unicorn. Most of you have skipped it. I think you can continue to skip it. So there you have it. All right. So thank you for coming along. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're all doing well. Take care of yourselves. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.